Well, as we sit and talk to you right now, there is a situation unfolding in the Johannesburg City Council, and that is where a new mayor is going to be elected. This is on the back of Dr. Mpho Phalatse having been ousted or voted out in a motion of no confidence yesterday. Well, let's talk more now on the instability in the various metros, not just in Gauteng, but look at the situation that's unfolding in KwaZulu-Natal as well. To help us put this into perspective is Dr. Thapelo Tselapedi. He is the lecturer of politics at Rhodes University. We also have in studio with me Tebogo Khaas. He is a political commentator. To both of you, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. Let me start with you, Thapelo, Dr. Thapelo Tselapedi, sitting in the Eastern Cape. This is your domain. You pay a lot of attention on what's going on in our municipalities. As things stand, we don't have legislation that governs the coalition agreements. Do you think that situations like this, as they continue to unfold, they call for that legislation to be enacted with the necessary speed?
Look, I think what I've said before in the article is that there must be some level of stability with regards to coalitions. We've seen the problems at the Kuruleni or the wrangling for power there. We've seen the problems just here at Nelson Mandela Bay, wrangling for power there. And we've seen it as well in the city of Tshwane, and now we're seeing it here in the city of Johannesburg, and it's the second time that it's happened. So I think, and clearly there needs to be a way of stabilizing, and this can happen whether at an organizational level, where party politics, or it can happen at the state level. Of course, there's the Intergovernmental Relations Act that can obviously also regulate this or intervene through mediation, where there seems to be an inability for the state or a tier of the state to be able to deliver on its constitutional mandate. But I think obviously also at the party level, the organization of the party should be able to intervene and say, well, let's allow this party to finish its term. I think this sort of jostling for power is not sustainable, given the already dire situation that we're in with regards to just infrastructure, whether water infrastructure or just our roads, are quite a problem, and just general delivery of services. I think then, these are not, and I don't think politicians should approach these problems of coalitions as that ideological differences between the different parties. I think we are in dire straits in the country, and basic things like services need to be delivered, roads need to be done. So I think the jostling for power just needs to be put to an end, depending on what coalition agreement there is in place. So it can happen at the legislative level, but it can also happen at the party political level.
Yeah. Well, let's try and bring in Tebogo Khaas now. Mr. Khaas, I'm trying to summarize what Dr. Tselapedi has just said. For me, what he seems to be suggesting is that politicians are fiddling while people on the ground do not have services. Not only are they fiddling, they are trying to jostle for power, making sure that their stomachs, their families are fed, while the poorest of the poor are not making ends meet. And those of us who can afford to pay our services, we're not getting our money's worth. Do politicians care about how we feel as residents?
Yeah, Colby, thanks. I think you've captured it very succinctly. In fact, given what we see now, you can see that politicians don't really care about residents of Johannesburg, never mind the rest of the country, because it seems to be all about them and what it is that they're able to. They're just looking for position in the feeding trough, it appears. Because how could you even have a party, as in the Al Jamaa, I believe, who would have about 3 seats, being considered to actually lead a metro such as Johannesburg, the heartbeat of the African economy?
But there's a word that is used there, I think it is by the ANC, who said this is going to be a transitional mayor. And the chairperson of the ANC in Johannesburg let it slip this morning on the radio when he said, well, how this is going to play out is that in Ekurhuleni, there will be an EFF mayor, and then in Johannesburg eventually, you are going to have an ANC mayor. You can't miss that if you are really in tune with what our politics is about. This is simply about a game to say, give us X and you get Y, but in between that, we, the taxpayers, must stomach this nonsense.
I mean, take for example what the DA had been doing so far, which is trying to address the electricity problem, or crisis rather, that we're facing, especially here in Johannesburg. It means all those plans that they had already laid out and tried to implement would have to be put on the back burner, while the musical chairs are being rearranged to, as you rightly put it, to try and fit in the different political parties. It means that this is not the last time we've seen a change in Johannesburg, because if we are going to get a Mayor Thapelo in now, it means we're going to get another ANC mayor coming in after him, which means there's going to be another motion of no confidence or resignation or whatever it is that they're trying to do. It is not right at all.
Dr. Tselapedi, perhaps you will have the last word. I have a bone to pick with you, and that is that you are saying perhaps legislatively we could have this issue of coalition agreements formalized, but at the same time you are saying that perhaps at party political level these could also be tied up. But I would argue strongly that there has been an attempt to do that at party political level and it simply has not worked.
No, of course not. I mean, the fact that parties enter into coalitions means that there is a basis for that coalition, which means there are trade-offs and agreements that they make with one another to enter into an agreement, of course. And perhaps part of the problem there is that maybe either they're not sticking to it or people are renegating on those agreements, whatever the issue is. So I agree to that extent, but I don't think we should still say that it should not form part of the solution. That at the party political level, political parties, e.g. the ANC, can still say, well, you know what, we've given the DA and our coalition 5 years, they've been elected, they got 30%, and I'm giving an example here. And, you know, we should allow them to finish that term of office. Because part of the problem for me, and I think the speaker had also just said it right now, the other analyst, is that you are literally halting programs in the transition from one party to the next party when they take over mayorship. You are changing also the MMCs who have a deadline that also their programs as well across the city. So I think for me it's quite problematic because, and especially sitting as outsiders, we never quite know what are the shifts or the changes that are made when a new party comes into office. So I think those things are quite problematic for us. But certainly I don't think the issue of party political intervention should be removed from part of the solutions, and it should be there. And I must say, the issue obviously at the legislative level or its intervention could be a bit hard, and because the state also has to intervene in such a way that you don't make it that difficult for political parties to still negotiate with one another. So that space still needs to be there. And there is the Intergovernmental Relations Act that also sort of looks at how to mediate between the different departments, or where there is a slow or inability to deliver on that constitutional mandate, then the government or a different tier would intervene there. So there needs to still be room for negotiations of the two different parties there.
Unfortunately, time is against us. I would have liked to continue the conversation. Dr. Thapelo Tselapedi, politics lecturer at Rhodes University, and sitting with me in studio, Tebogo Khaas, political commentator. Thank you very much for making time. All right.